What it do? What it do? Y'all know how we do. Welcome to the Digital Pitfalls, Fraternal Order, Pan Africanism, Pan African History, and the STEM program, and nation building. It's late night. We're going to get one in while they ain't watching. You know what I'm talking about. It's pretty interesting tonight. We're going to get with some info. This is some hardcore documentation I'm going to bring to you. Can't understand. We're getting it in. Marcus Garvey. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is not the type of teaching you're going to get from a Sarah Seti or a Umar Johnson or the current day teachers. They teach what they teach, but Pit Boss on a whole nother level. So, relax with it. It's late night. We're going to get it in. We ain't even trying to get them to watch just yet. So, what up with you? You know how I do. I got to get it in because I woke up super stupid early. I must have woke up like 3 in the morning. I was like, shit. Hate when I just get up and can't go to sleep. I just go get dressed. Like, shit, go get dressed. It's time to get to work. So, in this episode, we're going to get some intel in. How many of y'all know Old English 800? Have it ever been your brand? Have you ever drunk it in a 48-ounce can? Well, that's what we talking about. Where that come from? I see the OG rolling with the house. Black Becky the Techie, what it do? I see you, girl. Go this strong. I hope you ain't got the whole bunch up this late at night. They ain't got it up yet. So let me start it off, right? Just giving a little narration. We're going to talk about our brother Marcus Garvey. Little details y'all probably already know, but we got to lay a little quick foundation, right? So it says the Garvey movement. This is what we're talking about. It was the greatest international movement of the African people in modern time. At its peak in 1922. Through 1924, the movement counted over 8 million followers. The youngest Carters were taken in at 5 years old, and as they grew older, they graduated to the section of the older children. Garvey emphasized the belief in one God, the God of Africa, who should be visualized through Black eyes. He told Black people to become familiar with their ancient history and their rich cultural heritage. He called for the pride of the Black race. For an example, he made a Black doll for Black children. He was the first voice clearly to demand Black power. Black power is economic control of your environment, right? It was he who said, a race without authority and power is a race without respect. This is why I be bringing it to y'all like that. Because the modern day people, they trying to define it, but they don't never define it. So it emphasizing the need to have a separate Black institutions under Black leadership. Garvey anticipated the mood and thinking of the future Black nationalists by nearly 50 years. He died as he lived, an unbending apostle of African nationalism. The symbol which made him famous, the Black Star of Africa, and the red, the black, and the green flag of African liberation. It continued to inspire younger generations of African nationalists. So here's my question. This is my interest and my understanding. I'm looking around and watching these YouTube channels. You got, oh man, you got some horrible teaching going on. You got some misguided understanding as we walk into this Trump America. And in that Trump America, they radicalizing the game. They're taking the perspective and bending and twisting it. Some groups, they won't be focused on. Other groups, they're going to put the microscope on. And these brothers think that shit they've been talking during the Obama era, that they just going to slide by this time. It's a different kind of America. I see a couple comments in a couple previous videos I made, because these idiots that are following these dudes, they're mesmerized by their teaching. That's why I'm coming with this inside game. That's why I'm coming in stealth with it, going in like a surgical hand, cutting that thread, right? Y'all make sure y'all share this link somewhere. It might be some late nighters up. So first thing we got to do is get right into these FBI papers, right? I'm gonna actually show you the papers. I'm gonna show you the info, the intel. All right. So hold on, because I'm like flipping through my computer. We're doing some study tonight. This ain't just a lecture. We getting in deeper. We're going in much, much deeper. So let me get it all set up for you, right? Share my screen with you, just in case y'all don't believe me. Boom. Okay. I'm going to blow this up as big as I can, right? And this is the FBI investigation files on Marcus Garvey. This is the type of item, the description, and the dates. So the first time something is put on the desk, you turn it down just a little bit, y'all. I know you're trying to see. I'm going to get you right. You got to bear with me, because I only got so much room on the screen. Try to make it a little bit. Now, you don't necessarily have to be trying to squint your eyes to see it. I'm just showing it so you'll understand. I'm not just sitting here talking off the top of my head. Now, that's about as big as I can get it. Make it comfortable for you, right? So the first is a letter to Edward, and the description is to Edward J. Bernan from the director, William J. Burns. That happens on October 29th. 1921, and it's a flyer. The Universal Negro Improvement Association are all cordially invited to hear the Honorable Marcus Garvey. A couple of months later, this flyer is, put out by Marcus Garvey and his organization. Now, the agent at this time who filed the report, he's unknown at this very moment. The case is just beginning. There's not much going on just yet. The idea is just to see what subversive actions are happening in various Black organizations, right? So now, things start to move along. The Black Star Line is coming into fray. They're taking note of what types of move he's making over there. He hasn't necessarily crossed the line, they're just taking notes. So while they're taking notes, things are happening. Letters are being going back. I'm not going to touch every point because we only limited in time, and I have to just hit the keys. So things begin to step up a little bit. Now we're getting into 1922. Things are moving, right? Now I'm looking for a particular thing because something incredible begins to happen, right? So here's a report. Let's start at this report real quick. Agent Mama Timer J. Davis of New York. It's a period report that covers January 13th through 18th. He's just getting in. They're doing detailed information. It's a lot of agents involved, right? There's one agent. We're going to get to him in a moment. I'm going to show you how it works. 1 second. So now, okay, I might have passed it. Let's see. Memorandum concerning Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey is indicted on stock fraud charges. That happens in February 1922. But we got to go back a little bit. I could have passed this up. And I'm looking for this one so that we can identify it. And then once I identify it, we're going to go and check him out. Here we go. This is the one I passed up. So if you look over here, April 4th, 1905, if you can find that, right? It says, I'll start at the report. And then it says, to George F. Rutch from 800, a confidential employee, 800, employee 800. That's what he's going by. So an employee of the FBI is what? He's an agent. He's an agent for the FBI. Now, let me go up here and make sure that's the first time we encounter Agent 800. Drinking Agent 800. Yeah, that's the brand. So let's look here. Let's see how many times he comes in. So his first report in this file is April 4th of 1905. What the heck? That must be a typo. How we jumped to 1905? Okay. Handwritten letter, statements, 800, confidential employee, Constitution of the Book of Laws made for the government of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and the African Community Leagues, Inc. of the world. Okay, so now we identified Agent 800 in this FBI file report papers. Now, who is this Agent 800? Well, let's go over here. This is just a Wikipedia search, nothing real deep, just to give you James Wormley Jones. He was born on September 22nd, 1884 on December 11th, and he died 1958. And he was an African-American police and World War I veteran, and is best known for having been the first African-American FBI special agent. That's right. The FBI started hiring black folks, and James Wormley was the first. Now, let's get into some of his job investigation. So here, hope y'all can see that. I'm going to read this down a little bit. It says, Jones was appointed as the first African-American special agent on November 19th, 1919, by the Bureau of Investigation and Director A. Bruce Belaski. Sounds Russian. Jones was assigned to a new section of the Justice Department created to track the activities of groups perceived as subversive. His work was under the direct supervision of J. Edgar Hoover. During his time in the FBI, Jones served as a New York and a Pittsburgh. He served in New York and Pittsburgh. In New York, he was assigned to infiltrate the Universal Negro Improvement Association under the leadership of Marcus Garvey. Our focus. Although he was seeking evidence of subversion activities during the Red Scare. Now, the Red Scare was a violent time in 1919, where there was a lot of fighting and back and forth and bloodshed. It was getting busy, man. It was going through some tough times, and things was kind of deep. So, in the Red Scare of 1919, Jones' work led to the arrest and the trial of Garvey on mail fraud charges. While conducting surveillance, Jones adopted the code number 800 for his reports, as was also known as Agent 800. He apparently knew that his clandestine role was what was not well concealed. During a March 1920 speech at a UNIA Liberty Hall, he took special pains to point out to the audience that he was indeed of African ancestry, although he had the appearance of a person of Caucasian or European ancestry. Nevertheless, he engaged in the trust of the UNIA leadership to such an extent that he was able to gain responsibility for registering all incoming correspondence. His access to the UNIA correspondence, along with his position as Adjutant General of the African Legions, were essential to enabling his information gathering activities. And on August 21st, Jones began conducting similar surveillance on the African Blood Brotherhood. That's a bunch of journalists. I got a video on the other channel entitled The African Blood Brotherhood. See, Garvey had allowed the American Blood Brotherhood to kind of have an office at times in his building. They were a bunch of journalists from Trinidad. They were pretty radical. They kind of went under the auspices as that they were communist revolutionaries, socialists, but they were actually crypto nationalists. But nevertheless, eventually recognized as an ex-police officer, Jones was no longer an asset to the clandestine agent. And as he resigned from the Bureau on April 14th in 1923, Jones died December 11th in 1958 in Durham, Pennsylvania. All right. So now, as you see, they're using all types of tactics. So we walk down this list a little bit, right? This thing is covering a few years of documentation and the precise eye that they had on this organization. Now they're looking for subversiveness. Subversiveness against what? Against the system. Because see, J. Edgar Hoover didn't have much of an issue with the NAACP. Now I told you before about the NAACP. So I'll give you a quick look. Right here, you're taking a look at the Spingarn medal list. Now you have some pretty notable names on this list. The list begins in the same year that Booker T. Washington dies. That very year, the NAACP creates the Spingarn medal list. First up on the name was Ernest Everett Just. He was a zoologist and a marine biologist. Then we got Charles Young, Harry Thacker Burleigh, William Stanley Brightway. There's your man in 1920, W.D. Du Bois, a sociologist and a social activist. Charles Gilpin. We're going to get into these names on another show. Right now, I'm just giving you a little peek eye view at what's going on. And look here, they even throw my man, George Washington Carver, on here in 1923 for an agriculture chemist. Now, notice that he's given the award for agriculture because in that particular year, he pretty much modernized the cotton industry. And it was very difficult not to give him any accolades. They would have been like a sham unit had they not identified George Washington Carver for his work in agriculture. But if you take a look, not as much as the names, which we're going to get into a few, like Anthony Overton and Max Jurgen. We're going to get into these names. If you notice that on this list, the main people are civil rights activists. Here's another agriculture. Oh no, we're back to the other. Diplomat, anthologists, historians, writers, ministers, educators and government officials, more actors, educators, more civil rights leaders, educators, educators, and more educators, civil rights leaders, opera singers, surgeons, civil rights leaders, right? Now, that's the focus of the NAACP, is civil rights. This is all the way, every year, 1943. It's all about civil rights. Now, mind you, on their website, they say they're about all people's rights. But these are all black people that's on the list here. Paul R. Williams, architect. We finally got an architect. We got to check him a little deeper, see what's going on in his life. So you got journalists, and primarily we walk it all the way down. Civil rights all the way, even to this day. Lawyer and civil rights activist Vernon Jordan. Think about these people. John Hope Franklin, a historian and an educator. Maya Angelou, a poet. Now, the purpose of this list is none of these people are black nationalists. This is the opposite side of the flow. None of these people are nationalists. So therefore, they're still here with us. They're not subjected to this particular indictment like the Marcus Garvey type and the Booker T. Washington type. As you see here, they got files and files. And I'm sure they had files on all types of groups. Having a file is just part of having a good eye on your country, making sure you know what's going on. So I'm just giving y'all a little look, see how far this letter goes, right? We'll get down to the end of it. I just wanted to identify the Agent 800 as he's the one who got all this important information. Things get a little scary way down in the jungle deep. Now, I don't plan to give y'all all my links just yet, but we'll get into deeper detail with this information. Now, let me read into something a little bit, kind of cover that moment in the decisive way W.D. Du Bois is subject in dealing with these people. So the year is 1920 and the UNIA is in Harlem. They're having their first international convention at Madison Square Garden in New York City before a crowd of 25,000 people from all over the world. Marcus Garvey spoke of having pride in the American history and culture, in African history and culture, and many people found his words inspiring, but not all people. Some established black leaders found his separatist philosophy ill-conceived. See, in 1920, there's a man named W.D. Du Bois, and he's over there heading that NAACP faction, and he's not quite into a separatist ideology. So you have some so-called black nationalists of the day out here teaching W.D. Du Bois was this great black revolutionary for black power and black nationalism in the RBG. That red, black, that green. But not in 1920. And this is when the important moment is happening. So you can't put this guy in this decade. They want to push you all the way to 1960. That's 40 years later. Many of us isn't even 40 years old. 40 years from this moment into relevance. People say, well, W.D. Du Bois went to Ghana and he died black power, red, black, and green. That's a sham. You shouldn't even be allowed for the activities that you lived in your life. To be called or a part of an ideology that you lived the body of your life to destroy. So, W.D. Du Bois, a prominent black leader and an officer of the NAACP, called Garvey in 1920 the most dangerous enemy of the Negro race in America. Garvey felt Du Bois was an agent of the white elite. Now, that particular agency was working close in hand with J. Edgar Hoover at the time. J. Edgar Hoover would be the same guy that stepped in on Black Panthers, because the Black Panthers had the same social ideology as the Blood Brotherhood in 1920. So in 1960s, when J. Edgar Hoover noticed these Black Panthers, it wasn't hard to identify this particular group and the mentality that they were working with. That's why they had problems with the FBI. They had already been down that road before with the exact same man. That J. Edgar Hoover was a bad man. All right. So, dealing with W.D. Du Bois. But W.D. Du Bois wasn't the worst adversary of Garvey. History would soon reveal the FBI director, J. Edgar Hoover, someone who actually got power to do something about it. He had a fixation on running Garvey for his radical ideas. Hoover felt threatened by the black leader, fearing he was inciting blacks across the country to stand up in a military defiance. Hoover referred to Garvey as a notorious Negro agitator, and for several years desperately sought ways to find damning personal information on him, even going as far to hire the first black FBI agent in 1919 in order to infiltrate Garvey's rank and spy on him. They placed spies in the UNIA, the said historian Winston James. They sabotaged the Black Star Line. The engines of the ship were actually damaged by foreign matter being thrown into the fuel line. See, I've heard a couple of integrationists tell me, what good was Garvey? It didn't succeed. Yeah, but did you know about the guy who threw a monkey wrench in the engine? It's hard to succeed with a monkey wrench in the engine. Hoover would use the name and methods dedicated to later to obtain information on the black leader. He went after Martin Luther King. He went after Malcolm X. He went after any kind of standing up for black folks. Then you wonder why black folks can't get it together. Well, you just go thank the FBI leader, J. Edgar Hoover. He had different plans for black folks. That plan was integrate. I'm sorry, y'all. Let me get something to drink. It's early in the morning. I keep a bottle of water close by. I'm wide awake too. This is going to be a long day. I think I'm going to do 13 different videos today. Touching every second. Then we're going to get to some soap making tomorrow. All right. So, as we get deeper into this mess that we're creating, the idea is that black folks have taken two courses of thought. At this time in 1920, 1922, 1923, around these 20s, on one side of the thought, you have the Harlem Renaissance. That's full of all those actors and those poets and all those activists, and they don't seem to be under the same threat as the Marcus Garvey type and the black nationalist and separatist ideology that's going on. So, if you were a poet or a civil rights leader, You seem to be for black folks. If you were a separatist or a nationalist, you seemed to be for black folks. But there was a difference among who was attacking who. So we see these two mindsets in their education. In the nationalist side, they're focusing on a STEM. They're focusing on trades and institutions. They're building. And on the civil rights side of the thought, they're poets. That's literary arts. They're activists. That's more literary arts. There's a quick divide between these two psychological paradigms. People in the city of Harlem, you had the Renaissance era and the nationalist era operating parallels. It's easy to see. Once you understand that a certain type of thinking can cause you to build a nation, another type of thinking can cause you to integrate a nation. This is the dilemma between the two sides that are beginning to form and becoming more separated apart. Now, there's a vigorous to end the idea of black folks building nationalist ideas, institutions creating their own star line. Why would we not want a black star line? The black folks on the civil rights movement side of the fray not want to support. Obviously, it was something that multiple millions of black folks worldwide wanted. Garvey's idea gained him the most popular organization of all times. To the modern day, they still haven't built an organization as big because all people of color seem to want some sort of institutions that they control. Even the integrationists want to control some things. It's just normal life behavior to want to be the boss, to be your own boss. And so everybody wants to control something, but playing politics is a different ballgame. So as we take a look at that Spingarn list, let me show you something. We'll pull out names in particular. You can look these guys up in more detail. One guy, he's around, he gets the medal. Let's go see what year he gets the medal. This is a guy named Max Jurgen. Max Jurgen, he must have been pretty impressive because you had to really do some outstanding things to get that list. So Max Jurgen was born in 1892 on April 11th, and he died in 1975. He was an African-American activist, notable for being a Baptist member for the YMCA. The YMCA. Interesting. Then a communist working with Paul Robeson. He started off with the communist mindset. That's an interesting mindset. That communist mindset is that same dialectic materialism. It's that same socialist behavior. It's all connected. And he's working with a guy named Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson is definitely a key player at the time. And finally, a staunch anti-communist. He flips the script. He decides that communism is a little hard to be. He flips the script. Who complimented the government of apartheid era in South Africa for the part of their program. He was a mentor to Govan Mbeki. Govan Mbeki. That's right. Who later achieved distinction as the African National Congress, the ANC. So Govan Mbeki, who later achieved distinctions in the African National Congress, was influenced by this communist ideology and then this anti-communist ideology of Max Jurgen, a civil rights activist, and a Baptist minister. These combinations are going to be seen for the next several decades when it comes to who's who and what's what in the black fight and struggle in America. It's going to become apparent what's going on as we march down this road. It is so much information on top of information that I often have to sit back and ask myself, okay, break this down slow to them, because not many people understand your parallel. They don't understand why you pushing the STEM program so hard over the liberal arts program, because they don't know about all these names. They don't know about all these people's lives, and they don't seem to understand the direction of what offends what. So I'm showing you this information and explaining these people just as a tidbit to the iceberg, a little tip to the iceberg, that you could understand that certain mentality fought us towards the integrationist paradigm and a collapse to our economic control of our environment. They used every office and every organization to get the job done. They became the ministers, they became the radicals, they became every aspect of Black life, because they have to control the narrative. When you hear me talk about different Black YouTube channels of the day who don't want you to speak, they want to, keep your voice down. It's called controlling the narrative. If you can control the narrative, you can control the destination, because the audience is influenced by the narrative. And so if you can keep a certain narrative from being heard, competition goes away. That's why I drive this STEM program, because as I studied these names and the games in which they played, I realized that those that took that approach built institutions. And from institutions, you get economic control. And so it's imperative that you set up an LLC and prepare your way to build you an institution, small or large. It has to be done. So, dealing with Garvey, Agent 800 James Wormley, W.D. Du Bois, the sociologist and the activist of the 1920s, and sharply opposed to Garvey's nationalism. They did not want nationalism. They wanted activism. Today, that's what you're going to get a lot of in the Trump years, is activism. Every time something occurs on the news, the activists will be out there on the scene. Activists yell speeches, but little is produced. Little is produced. It is not an overt action that's necessary in the Trump era. It is covert action. And the covert action is simply sitting behind the scenes, operating institutions, building products and services to empower yourself economically. That way, you got leverage. That's what the activists lack, is leverage, because the funding for the activists always comes from organizations under the 501c3 type setups. Now we're back to the government funding. That's what the NAACP is. The NAACP has been in business for 100 years and doesn't own 1 acre of land, doesn't produce one product. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. How could you be for the advancement of all people with a name like the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People? The person you're fighting for is in the name of your organization. But how can there be any advancement if there isn't any land purchased? If all the money you are given is by those who wish to control your community? It's nothing wrong with getting money from where it comes from, but it's what you're able to do with the money. If you're going to give me money and tell me what to do with it, keep your money. I need to keep control of my organization. And so by that, We have to institute services, programs, and retooling the community so that our children and the youngsters who grow up learn the behavior of building institutions, not gaining a bunch of debt. There's nothing wrong with going to college and learning whatever you so desire. But if the end result of your learning is that you're forced to work for them and sit up under them in order to pay your bills, then you are slowly headed for destruction. Your goal of learning is to eventually control your own environment. If you're not achieving that, you're not doing much at all. We're going to continue this talk. I got to break these videos up because we're doing a lot of information today, and we'll be back. I hope it's been a little interesting. I hope you found a little something out of it that you could use. And we out of here. This is your boy, the Digital Pit Boss. Baby, baby. Y'all know how we get it, right? We're going to make it happen for you. So no long closings for y'all. I'll be back on in an hour or so with another one. We going in all day today. Y'all know how we do. What up to the room? Good morning to you, E. Good morning to you, Black Becky. We got a few watching. They peeping, but they ain't speaking. Holla back at your boy. This is the Digital Pit Boss. Appreciate you for supporting the page, checking out my videos. Peace.